Hey, friends all over the world. I come to you with the shocking truth about Squid Game, which is a Netflix series that, from my understanding, is the most popular series in the world right now. It's a Korean show. Now, in full disclaimer, I've never watched this show, but I do have a synopsis of what the show is about. And I want to tell you something very interesting about it. So essentially, Squid Game is a show. It's a Korean show with English subtitles that is about sort of a, not post-apocalyptic, but sort of, society where most people are poor, or there's a lot of poor people, like a dystopian kind of society where there's a lot of poor people. And these poor people are summoned to play a game or a series of children's game. We would call it like a red light, green light. Simon Says. So they're summoned to play this game, this contest where they're playing these children's games, and there's a financial prize in the billions of Korean currency. Billions and billions of dollars is the prize for winning these games, right? And so everybody, they look at the money, they look at the finances associated with this, and everybody's, they're excited about playing it. They're saying, oh, we're going to win all this money, etc. So as they start to play the games, this is the synopsis, as they start to play the games, some of them try to cheat or they make mistakes in the games, and they basically get their heads blown off, their body blown to pieces. It's one of the most gory shows on television right now. One of the most gory and sadistic shows on television right now, and it's for that reason it's very popular. Now hear this.
September 17th, this is what an article said about it, focuses on a desperately indebted group of people in South Korea. Beginning in episode 1, 456 players fight for their lives at a cash reward starting at $38 million, but increases into the billions. After accepting an ominous invitation to play a series of children's games, each round is monitored by masked guards wearing pink suits as the front man oversees it all. This 9-episode series quickly takes a dark turn when the contestants realize that every challenge brings the possibility of injury or death. Amid the bloody games, fans learn more about each player. And then it says this in the article: you'll probably get some Hunger Games flashbacks and some throwbacks to Hostel and horror flicks, with a mask-rich VIPs bet on and cheer on the deaths of participants. But Squid Games doesn't like a copycat. It's a well-done drama horror series. Okay, so when you guys
Netflix's most successful show, Squid Games, broke their records. I think it had over 100 million views in the first month that it was out. If you guys haven't seen Squid Games, you don't have to. I saw it.
Okay, rather violent, but the thing is, once you start watching it, you can't really stop.
Not only does the Squid Game show speak to the depravity of the human condition, but it speaks to the sadistic nature of American culture, and the fact that because it's violent and because it's gory and because it's sadistic, people love it. It speaks to the depravity in our culture, right? It speaks to the fact that people love violence. They love death. They love destruction, right? They love seeing people be blown into pieces. But not only that, here's what I want to tell you the truth about this show. I hope you're ready for this, because this is really deep. The truth about this show, The Squid Game, is that's exactly what's happening right now. This show is in many ways a prophetic archetype of where we are right now as a society. Basically, there is a media machine, there is a political machine right now that is encouraging and coercing us to play the game of the culture, to play along, to play these games, to play these cultural games.
So I want you guys to think about this. Number one most watched show in the world right now is a horror movie, horror show about death, about mass murder, about killing. I read an article that was talking about how does this bleed into the real world, and it said people want to mimic the events in Squid Games minus the murder. Things turn grim at a Belgian school. Kids who apparently watched the show, even though it's supposed to be for adults only, beat up those who lost red light, green light. The school alerted parents and they're cracking down on behavior. The game is still allowed, just not the fights afterwards. So they're saying basically that this show is not only influencing adults, but kids are watching it and kids are being influenced by it. Here's the thing. If the number one most show watched in the world is about murder, is about killing, is about fear and horror, you have to understand it's going to affect the next generation. It's going to affect children. And the mind-blowing thing is Christians are watching it. So I'm going to give you a couple reasons why Christians shouldn't watch the show. Number one is the show opens up the door to demonic spirits. Now, before you say, Isaiah, don't be so dramatic. How could a show open up the door to demons? Understand that I deal with these people. I deal with people all the time in deliverance that come because they watched a show, they watched a movie, and a demon came from them watching the movie. These movies instill fear.
It is a South Korean show that has a lot of deeper commentary than we might think about. So what's the premise? It's very simple. Squid Games, these guys who are in gross amounts of debt, a lot of them are gamblers, end up having the option to go and participate in these kid games, everything from red light, green light, and they get to go and participate in these games, and they're playing for the equivalent of about $40 million, okay? There's gonna be some spoilers in this video, so if you're in the middle of it, don't be mad at me because I'm giving you the information, okay? So
to play these mind games and to play these things. And watch this. If you don't play the game according to their rules, they seek to destroy you. It's happening right now. I'm not encouraging you to watch the show. Sorry about that. I'm not encouraging you to watch the show. I'm telling you that right now, in many ways, from a cultural perspective, we are in a Squid Game. And they're not divulging the rules. They're not telling you the consequences of not playing their game. But the consequences are dire. There is a spirit of manipulation in the earth right now. And I'm telling you, and let's just, hey, everybody play along. And we got the children's music playing in the background. And we got the la 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 la, the lullabies going on. And they're telling you, oh yeah, we're just going to have these mandates. We're going to have mandates. It's not that serious. It's just to protect everyone. But if you don't follow the rules, if you don't submit to their rules, if you don't play their game, they're seeking to destroy you. That's what we are. Let me tell you something. America is in a Squid Game right now. Right now. Right now.
So they're going to compete for this, and there's these different games that they have to play, and people keep dying, and it's brutally violent and over the top, and I don't recommend it. I definitely don't recommend it if you have kids, okay? I don't recommend it if you got a weak conscience. I don't recommend it if you're offended by gore and blood and all that kind of stuff. And it was a lot. It was intense. My wife was like, wow, I can't believe we're watching this. And I was like, yeah, but we can't stop. Let's keep it a buck, okay?
They promise you peace. They promise you safety, but there's something nefarious behind it. There's something diabolical behind their intentions. And they're not telling people the end game. They're not telling people what they're really all about. So we can look at this show, and of course, there's a lot of evil associated with a show like that. But the whole premise of this is deception. The whole premise of this is to depopulate society. To use a carrot, something that, a promise, hey, if you do this, you're going to get this. But in actuality, the goal is to kill you. The goal is to destroy you. The goal is to end your life. They in this show, they're basically using people as guinea pigs to feed their sadism, to feed their diabolical appetite. It's amazing how these shows in many ways are a representation of where we are in society today. It's a representation of the manipulation and the control. And here it is. This is how you use manipulation. You kill one person or two people or three people to force the others into submission.
Okay, so I'm gonna give you guys what my opinion is on some of the deeper meaning around Squid Games, which the premise, believe it or not, the premise is actually inspired by real things that are happening in South Korea right now. And I'm gonna break that down for you. So just make sure you watch till the end. I'm gonna have some Bible verses to tie it in. But I wanted to first point out the first thing from Squid Games that stood out to me, which was these guys that pulled up who were the guests. As remember, these guys, they pulled up to watch the Squid Games. Okay, now my first theory on Squid Games is these guys is a shot at all of us. These guys are actually us who are sitting around watching this game and indulging in it. I think that's the first little commentary, little nod is like, oh yeah, like you're gonna come and participate in this debauchery and watch it. And I think that when I saw that, and guess what? They were American, were they not? They were all American. So I think this is a little shot, low key, at America in terms of the wealthy consuming the misery of the poor in entertainment form.
To force you to use death as a manipulation tool and say, listen, okay, these didn't do what we said, and look, they died. This person didn't do, they didn't do what we told them to do, and look, they're dead. And if you don't do what we tell you to do, you're next. This is what's happening. If you don't comply with our rules, if you don't follow our rules, we're going to make an example out of you. That's essentially what's happening today. If you don't follow our rules, like the pastor that wouldn't close his church in Canada, you don't follow our rules, we're going to lock you up for 6 years. And guess what? Whoever else doesn't do this is next on the list.
These shows instill, murder, horror, anxiety, stress in people, suicidal thoughts. And so it opens the door to demons, and then people come to me. So if you're going to say, Isaiah, don't be so drastic and radical, a demon can't come through movies, please have experience before you tell me, because you do not deal with these people. I do. And people absolutely, listen to what I'm going to say here, can get demons from watching horror movies. Whether you believe it or not, these shows are open doors to demons, and we're over here working hard to get demons out of people, cast out demons, and these shows are just opening up the floodgates. It's all fun and games until you get a demon. So a lot of people that are watching this, they think it's no big deal, and then they get a demon they can't get rid of, and then they call us, and they freak out. But friend, it's no joke. These open up doors to spirits that definitely are at play in this show. Is number one, the spirit of fear. 2 Timothy chapter 1, verse 7 says, God has not given us a spirit of fear, but of power, love, and a sound mind. And this show, God has not given you a spirit of fear, but this show will give you a spirit of fear. So it's all about fear, horror, and just suspense. The second spirit that this show functions in is the spirit of murder. There's mass murder in the show. The show is all about people getting killed for not competing or winning at these games. Again, I haven't seen the show. I just had a family member telling me, and I did some research on it. But yes, the spirit of murder is at play, and this will open the door to murder and fear. I already know some of you are cringing because you're like, you're just being too radical. It's real stuff, guys. The Bible says your eye is the window to your body. The eye is truly the window to the soul. Whatever you let in your eye is going to affect you. Think about the things that you've seen that are traumatic, maybe as a child, maybe growing up, maybe in a movie or a show. It's hard to get those images out of your mind because the eye is the window to the soul. It's the light, the lamp to the body. Matthew 6:22, Jesus said, the eye is the lamp of the body. So if your eye is healthy, your whole body will be full of light. So if you fill your eyes with light and good things, your body's full of light. But if you fill your eyes with darkness, your body's filled with darkness. So the eye, the lamp of the body, we know the lamp brings light, the lamp guides us. And so your eyes guide you, your eyes are full of light, then you're healthy. And if they're full of darkness, you're unhealthy. So don't expect to be watching horror movies and crazy shows and have a healthy body or be spiritually healthy. It's very clear that if you let bad things in your eyes, negative things, demonic things, your body will be full of darkness.
And so now people are being forced through fear into submission. They're being forced into a Squid Game. Hear me what I'm saying to you today. They're being forced into a Squid Game. They're being forced to submit to something against their will. Does this sound familiar, friends? Does this sound familiar? That the devil's trying to create a dystopian society, a fascist society based upon manipulation and control. And if you don't follow what they tell you to do, if you don't do what they tell you to do, there are dire consequences. That's what's happening right now. It's not entertainment. It's not TV. It's not a fictional narrative. This is real. It's happening right now. And some of you can't see it because just like the show Squid Game, it's under the guise, it's veiled as entertainment. It's veiled as a game show. It's veiled as something, something harmless. We're just going to play some harmless little kid games and nobody's going to get hurt.
For Squid Games. South Korea has a massive, massive, massive debt problem. Like insane debt. And you can verify this and Google all of this. So the actual premise of people being really down and out in terms of their financial state and being in debt and even signing clauses to give away their kidneys is actually inspired by real events from the director and the showrunner of the show, where at some point that actually had to happen. And it's a intimidation tactic, but that is real, believe it or not, that there are lenders all over South Korea that have the most unethical and illegal rates of exchange. And so what happens is you're capped out at a certain amount going through a private bank, even though the credit card limits in South Korea are through the roof, but you get capped out at a certain amount eventually, and the interest rate stops, I think, from a banker at 20%. Well, the way the cycle of debt works in South Korea, because they have an older population, because the birth rate isn't growing as fast as other industrialized nation, they have a huge job crisis, and for specifically young adults, and their unemployment rate for young adults is 10%. Men between the ages, I believe, of 20 to 35, 10% unemployment, double-digit unemployment rate. So a lot of these people believe that they need these illegal lenders to help them get through things. And when you have the credit card industry, which is already super shady and giving folks with a $500 income, $50,000 debt ceiling to buy whatever they want, and then you add in the illegal lending, which there's flyers everywhere and there's all kinds of stuff. And again, LA Times, I believe, just came out with an article on this. There's illegal flyers flying around for you to grab. And it's just like, yo, you need money now. They'll give it to you right now. And they'll pull up and they'll give you, a couple $1,000s, a couple $100. But the interest rates are sometimes as high as 400% or 500%. So LA Times has this article and they interview this guy who owns like a tea shop. And the dude is like $800,000 USD, US currency in debt. Okay, crazy amount. So what happens is a lot of these folks who start out with credit card debts because they're young and they're stupid, and I ran into a lot of credit card debt, then they have to go on to get illegal debt just to survive because the job market is tough, and then they end up gambling as a means for easy money. And even when folks win, they end up losing all of it because, well, that's how we know easy money works for us, right? This entire premise isn't as far out as you think it is in terms of, yes, the bloody side and the murderers and all that kind of stuff. That's the game side is crazy. But the societal positioning of what these folks are going through is actually pretty real.
But they don't tell you that the moment you make a false move, they're going to blow your head off. The moment you don't comply with their rules. See, it starts out like this. It starts out like this. Hey, we're just trying to, we just need everybody's cooperation. So the sooner everybody cooperates, the sooner this will all be over. But it's a lie. It's a lie. It's not about everybody cooperating to help their fellow man. It's about control. It's about manipulation. It's about the removal of consciousness and the violation of your will, your rights. And that's why anybody who doesn't comply, who doesn't go along with the narrative, is ostracized, canceled, isolated, demonized, vilified.
This is real stuff that they are dealing with that is really hitting young adults in South Korea really hard. And because this young adult class is not stable and does not have a ton of economic mobility, their population is shrinking, meaning that there's way more older people. I believe the average age in South Korea is 48 years old. The average age in America, for context, is about 37, 38 years old. They have a much older population. What does that mean? That means that as people get older, they take more from the system than they put in. Okay, so South Korea pays out a lot in their version of SSI, and there's not enough young people hitting the labor market. This is going to create a huge economic burden on the entire nation. So this Squid Games thing has a way more commentary and way more truth to it in terms of assessing real life issues, and also kind of turning the mirror on us who are consuming it with the American folks that come and consume it. Now, I'm gonna give you guys two verses. The first one many of us are familiar with, which is Proverbs chapter 22 verse 7. Just as the rich rule the poor, so the borrower is servant to the lender. Okay, this is in the scriptures, okay? And if you ever look at debt in the scriptures, by and large, it's never seen as a good thing. It's never encouraged. It's never a benevolent act. It's always, hey, borrower is slave to the lender. He who cosigns is stupid, right? This is the type of language that's used. More or less, debt, scripturally speaking, is usually dumb. And guess what? In America, we have a system where an 18-year-old with no type of income trajectory can go and take out $200,000 in debt without any plan to pay it back. And so we have a similar issue here with the student loan crisis, right? Money's given out like candy to 18, 17-year-old kids that have no real plans to pay it back, don't know how they're going to pay it back, when they're going to pay it back. They don't have an income, right? But you try go getting a business loan, which, by the way, I don't recommend business loans, but you go try getting a business loan. So it's a similar thing. Now, the way to alleviate all these issues.
Slandered. They print libel about the person. Do you see that this show is an archetype of what's happening in America and across the globe right now, and the spirit of Antichrist and the Antichrist agenda to use fear to dominate and control? What does it say in the book of Revelation? Whoever didn't take the mark of the beast could not buy or sell. And then people in Revelation who didn't comply were killed. They were martyred when they didn't comply to the Antichrist agenda. And here we are, friends. Here we are, friends. The devil's trying to bring us into a squid game. But let me tell you something. Number one, greater is he who is in you than he who is in the world. Number two, the devil has but a short time. Number three, God has seen the plans of the enemy and has already thwarted his plans. Stand fast and see the salvation of the Lord, and don't get caught up in a Squid Game. God bless you.
Psalms 101:3 says, I will not set before my eyes anything that is worthless. So David is saying here, listen, I'm not going to put my eyes on worthless things. Are horror movies worthless? Is there value in them? No. Is watching people get murdered worthless? Yes. And so David's saying, I'm not going to set my eyes on worthless things. And this show is absolutely worthless. Another question we need to ask is, whose kingdom is glorified in this show? And the answer is Satan's kingdom. God's kingdom is not glorified in the show. I had someone in my chat, in my live stream say, oh, my pastor watches this show. And this is where we're at in the church. Like, where is holiness in the body of Christ? Where are pastors that are going to say, absolutely not. We have a standard of consecration, a standard of holiness. We need to stop having fellowship with darkness. 1 Corinthians 10:20. I do not want you. This is what the Bible says. I do not want you to have fellowship with demons. You cannot drink the cup of the Lord and the cup of demons. You cannot partake of the Lord's table and the table of demons. So Paul is saying, I don't want you to participate in any fellowship with things that are demonic and partaking in demonic things like this show. So understand, horror movies is fellowship with darkness. Horror movies give place for the devil to dwell. Ephesians 4:26-27. Be angry and do not sin. Do not let the sun go down in your wrath, nor give place to the devil. So these movies give the devil place. They give the devil opportunity. If you've ever experienced after watching horror movies, it's hard to sleep, or you can't get images out of your mind, or things that were never terrifying are now terrifying, or you notice that anytime you watch something gory or grotesque, the images can't come out of your mind. That's because you've given place for the devil. You've given place for the enemy. So understand that when we watch horror movies, we're entertaining the thoughts or ideas of darkness, of Satan, of his kingdom, and you're giving him a foothold.
Are you putting away some money? Are you starting to save? First of all, are you getting out of debt? Second of all, do you have a financial plan to save 6 months to a year of living expenses? And then are you actually putting food away? It stores its provision in summer and gathers its food at harvest. And gathers its food at harvest. That means when there's a harvest, the ant, which is the illustration being used here, is ready to go. It's ready to harvest, right? It's ready to gather the food when there's a crop. Okay, so those of you guys that are watching this and you're looking at this show and you're like, oh my gosh, it's so barbaric. And it is. It's really wild. It's really over the top. But it is a mirror to what can turn into here in America. And the deeper issue in terms of gathering and storing away is, I'm not depending on the government to take care of me. I'm not depending on the government to take care of my family. Even though they print money and they do all kinds of goofy stuff, I'm not depending on them. But here's the deal. If you can start decreasing your overhead by getting out of debt, being on a financial plan, and and saving money, earning money, developing more skills so that you can gather at the harvest, you can have more skills in the marketplace, you can retire a millionaire. What do I mean? I mean just $100. Just $100. Those $100 pairs of shoes that you want, just $100 tucked away in a S&P 500 index fund on Robinhood. That $100 turns into $20,000 by the time you're ready to retire. That's a fact.
Foothold.
Okay.
Matthew 5:29. Jesus said, if your right eye causes you to sin, tear it out and throw it away. For it's better that you lose one of your members than your whole body thrown into hell. So Jesus says, listen, if your eye causes you to sin, now in context, he's talking about sexual sin, but this could also be relevant if you're watching horror movies, which is sin. He says you might as well gouge your eye out, for it's better to lose one eye than to enter hell with your entire body. Paul said in Philippians 4:8, guys, I'm giving you a lot of verses here. Philippians 4:8, this is what Paul says. Whatever is true, whatever is honorable, whatever is just, whatever is pure, whatever is lovely, whatever is commendable, if there's any moral excellence or anything praiseworthy, dwell on these things. So we're not called to dwell on horror. We're not called to dwell on fear. We're not called to dwell on murder. Paul is telling us you need to dwell on that which is holy, honorable, true. So understand, friend, a lot of people say, when I watch this horror movie or someone die in the movie, I feel sick to my stomach. That's you violating your conscience. The reason why you felt sick watching Squid Games is because you're violating your conscience and you're wounding your soul. And the more you do this, the more your conscience is seared, the more it's harder to get that conviction and that feeling. So don't be mistaken, friend. You are searing your conscience by watching these movies. So the question we started with, should Christians watch these type of shows? The answer is absolutely not. I've given you verses. I don't understand how we think these shows are okay. Absolutely not. We should not be watching Squid Games. We should not be watching these demonic shows. As for me, I'm keeping the doors closed. Now, you can watch the movie and open the door and something maybe doesn't come through, maybe something does, but I'm not taking a chance. I'm not giving the devil a foothold. I'm not flirting with darkness. I'm not playing games. Friend, my testimony, I used to love horror movies. Before I got saved, Saw was my favorite movie. I loved these type of movies. I loved horror movies, but then I was born again. God delivered me. He gave me new desires, new ambitions, new motives, new pleasures, and I don't have any desire to watch horror movies. So if you call yourself a Christian, I want you to reevaluate yourself if you think these movies are okay. These movies are not okay. If this blessed you, if it enlightened you at all, again, don't start trying to watch clips because you're curious about the Squid Games. I've already done the research for you. It's demonic. It's about murder. It's about fear. Do not watch this show. Send this to a friend or family member or your pastor that watches it. Maybe they'll change their mind. Maybe.